Today, I am honored to introduce you to Taha Mandviwala, someone I haven't known long, but who instantly stood out as one of the kindest, most positive, and dynamic people I've ever met. Taha is not only a talented personal trainer and parkour instructor, he's also a world-class actor and currently playing the lead role of the critically acclaimed Life of Pi on its first national tour. My wife and I went to see him a couple of months ago, and his performance was nothing short of extraordinary in every sense of the word. Taha, welcome to the podcast.
Dude, so happy to be here.
I'm very excited to have you here. It's been wonderful to get to know you. For everyone who doesn't know you, who are you?
It all started many, many moons ago, a small town in Detroit. No, I've had a very, I don't know, I don't have much of a profile in the world, and it's kind of weird. I feel the weird imposter syndrome sometimes coming onto something like this, because you have these like doctors and all these like very, very established, studious people, and I feel like I'm like a jack of all trades.
Yeah.
Who has dabbled in a lot of different things, but have found a lot of joy in those things, and that's sort of been my purpose. As in a nutshell, I think movement is like the biggest part of my life. It's always been a big part of my life, and that sort of found different avenues to express itself in those ways. And the spark notes is that I grew up in Kentucky. I loved school. I loved the sort of the environment that I grew up in and the outdoors, and eventually went to the University of Kentucky, where I was studying medicine all the way up until my senior year of college. And it was in college when I was slowly introduced to theater. And it was this weird transition of discovering something new and relinquishing something old, and growing out of that and sort of launching into a very new path. And
So
then
you
just
didn't start theater until college. You weren't a theater kid growing up.
No.
Really?
Yes.
How did that happen in college? Like, how were you introduced to it?
Yeah. So, even just backtracking a little bit. So my dad is a physician.
Okay.
My older brother is a physician. And I just had there was a lot of exposure in my life to medicine. And it wasn't one of the stereotypical things where, there's a lot of expectation that's around like, oh, you have to do this, this, or this. I was very fortunate in that it was just a natural inclination. And so when I went into college, I already had this very nourished understanding of health and helping people and wanting to apply myself in that area. But theater was very left wing, but I attribute it all to one of my best friends in the whole world. He's like a brother to me. His name is Hunter Henriksen, and he is a performer down to his bones. Like his family is full of music and performance and life. And I met him in the summer of 2011 at a nerd camp that we went to called the Governor Scholars Program in Kentucky. And we just took to each other instantly. And so he was the first spark. I would go to see his shows senior year of high school. I saw him in Little Shop of Horrors, and I lost my mind because of how connected I felt. I was live performance was something that I really didn't understand what the appeal specifically was at the time. But all I remember was just being so absorbed. You sit down in a room with a bunch of people and sharing the same environment, witnessing the same thing, and just collectively having this experience together. And I loved it. It was so, so amazing. And then it was just year by year. It was like layer by layer. Freshman year was when I was like, I'm going to take an intro to theater class for my art credit, amidst all of this deep science shit that I was learning at the time. It's like going to biochem, going to physics, going to chem, intro to theater, and then back to whatever science stuff. And then it was, the next year was when, okay, I'm going to audition for my first play. Junior year was when I switched my major to theater, and that's a whole That's a funny story because, like, in my head, I was still medicine. I was still pre-med in my trajectory, but theater was it was becoming a part of my life, and I really wanted it to show. And in my mind, I was like, this could look really good on a med school application because they get you get the same. You get the biochemical engineers, you got biology majors, you got chem majors. Well, how cool would it be to see a theater major coming in to apply for a med school thing? And in my head, when I was trying to pitch the idea to my dad and my mom, I'm like, Mom, Dad, don't you want a doctor with good empathy, good bedside manner, good communication? And
100%.
it feels like a very justifiable reason. And
Yeah.
in my head, that was the justification because it was true. But then I remember taking the MCAT. Like I took the exam that would then start the process to apply to medical school. And I was in this jail cell for like 7 hours taking this test. And I remember like walking outside and feel the sun on my face. I opened my eyes to God and I said, I don't know if I want to do this for another 10 years. I was like, but it was, obviously it was more than that. But it was a multiple like come to God moments on top of this momentum of a snowball effect of discovery and giving yourself permission to try something new and express yourself and find confidence in things that you've never really given yourself permission to do before, and finding validation in the right places at the right time to then launch you into something new and to like have enough evidence in your life to make a big change. And that's what happened senior year when I like fully decided I'm going to try this. I'm going to try to become a full-time working actor. As someone who culturally, where I grew up, I just had there was no path. And I think that's something with, as an actor, nobody's path is the same. Everybody has their own way into it. Everybody has their own relationships with it and what they want to get out of it. And so, we can talk more about that too.
Yeah.
It's just like, so it started in college. It launched out of college. And then the short of it is that I moved to Cincinnati. So it was like, I grew up in Kentucky. If this is the state of Kentucky, which is like the shape of the hand. I grew up here. I went to college here, and then I lived here in northern Kentucky, Cincinnati.
All in one straight line, yeah.
I just like worked my way up I-75 just like year after year. And that's where my start happened, at Cincinnati Playhouse in the Park. It's a very esteemed regional theater. I did an internship there where I just really, there was so much that happened that year. I did touring youth theater, which is hilarious because I was just talking to your mom about your upbringing, going to those spaces, going to youth theater and taking like youth classes. I taught some youth theater classes as well, and working with kids and doing immersive theater. So like doing pop-ups in bars and like creating these like dramatic things that people are looking like, what the fuck is happening? And it was all like semi-scripted, and it was fascinating. All the while, like learning the infrastructure of what it means to be a working professional actor in that capacity. And then it was just like a spider web, man. Like it proliferated from meeting the right people at the right time, and meeting people that saw something in you that would give you opportunities, and that led me to California, to Cleveland, to Virginia, and like all of these different theaters, and just learning about what it was to do this. And I've been going for a while with
dude.
with this. And
What you were talking about a lot, but I'm going to go back to early on when you were first exposed in high school to theater.
Yeah.
There's something about sitting in an audience and watching a well-produced show that has so much emotion involved. And I was very fortunate. My mom made sure to take me to theater like from the time I was as young as I can remember. She putting me in theater classes, but also going to watch theater, going to Broadway shows, going to shows in Boston and New York. And I remember taking I was dating my now wife at the time, and she came to visit New York, and we went to see Kinky Boots on
Nice.
Broadway, and it's just a phenomenal show. And she had never seen a show in person before like this, and so she didn't know what to expect. By the end of it, she was in tears. It's a very unique and special thing that I always encourage people, like, go to a show, go watch these actors who put their whole life and their whole soul and their whole heart into this. It's one of the most amazing things to witness, and it's the way you were describing it. It just makes me want to go see more. And then watching you recently 6 weeks ago was incredible, and not just the acting part of it, but also, and we'll talk more about it, but watching your movement, watching how you literally put your whole body into every single syllable, every single movement, every single thing that you do on stage. Just, I was moved by. I was enthralled with. It was extraordinary. I would love to know more about you as a person outside of acting. So can you talk about what growing up was like? I know before we started recording, your parents emigrated here from Pakistan. Is that correct?
That's right.
Can you talk about growing up, immigrant parents, what that was like for you, and just no rush. I just want to hear about your life.
Dude, it was, I mean, it's only been recently in the last like 5, 10 years of my life that I've really been able to like metabolize the story of my family, which is really, it's a very humbling thing. I think it's given me a lot more perspective, especially now, like in the times that we're living in right now, where immigration is a hot button topic. And it's so. I feel so grateful to be the child of immigrants. It has given me so much. And, just to give you the idea of the trajectory of my family. So my dad grew up in Pakistan, in Karachi. My mom also grew up in Pakistan, Karachi area, but then we also have roots in Tanzania.
Oh, cool.
As well. So we still have a lot of family in Dar es Salaam, which is the East Africa. And they ended up moving to England. So they moved to London, England, soon after they got married. And my older brother was born there.
Why did they move to England?
So my dad is a physician, and he began his career. He studied medicine in Pakistan originally, and then moved to England to start practicing. So he worked at a hospital in England.
Was there no job opportunity in Pakistan, or like what was the impetus for being like, we want to get out of here?
I'll drop a line from the show, but for a better life, like to seek a better life or better opportunities, and Pakistan can give a lot, but there's also, it's still under development, and there's an allure to go and, take everything that you've known and learned and apply yourself to have better opportunities for yourself. And
did they speak English before they moved to? Okay.
Yeah, they did. And I'm sure, like, that's stuff. Even I'm so curious about it. I'm still uncovering now, as I've gotten older and learning more about and learning how to ask the right questions.
Yeah.
Because I think like there's a divide that happens when you're younger with your parents, and they might shield you from a lot of the stories and the things that they struggled with or grew up with. And it's only now, like when you finally come into your own, that you're starting to have the curiosity about what it was like when you were like, when they were your age.
Yeah.
Even I'm so curious. But there, my older brother was born, and I think the primary motive for them to move to the U.S., which was in 1992, was, the pay is not great necessarily in the U.K. And so when my dad immigrated here, he had to retake all of his exams.
Oh my gosh.
That's something that my mother-in-law, same thing, they had to do. You're fully practicing, fully licensed doctor, but you still have to retake everything when you immigrate to the country. But he did, and he moved to Detroit in 1992. I was born in 1993, so I'm first generation American. I was born here in the country. When I run for president, I'm legally allowed to do it. Yeah, so I don't really claim Detroit any more than I was born there because I don't remember much of
Yeah.
it. But then my dad did his fellowship at the University of Louisville in Kentucky and then ended up in London, Kentucky. So they go from London, England to London, Kentucky, where my dad still works in that same like
Oh,
healthcare
wow.
field for almost 25 years,
That's
25
awesome.
plus years, almost going on 30 years, serving the same community of people in rural southeastern Kentucky. And it's, and talking about that chapter of my life, which is still part of my life. I was just reflecting on this recently. When you, London, Kentucky, it's a smaller town. And we were one of very few people of color, Muslim families growing up in a predominantly white Baptist Christian town. And yeah, like you could imagine, there's an otherness that tends to happen, but there's also assimilation that happens. You learn where you are, you interact with people, and for the most part, people are very understanding. They're very kind. They're very welcoming, and it was my life. Like I, for better or for worse, that was my life, and some of my fondest memories and a lot of my values have been shaped because of that small town sort of feel. And where we grew up, we had so much access to nature and just open space and just grass and trees and creeks and a childhood of misspent youth out just like exploring, and something I really feel like is lacking nowadays with just kids and the infrastructure and safety and all of these things, where you don't necessarily have the same opportunity to just leave your house as a kid and just go and roam around, hang out with the neighbors' kids, go into the woods and just build stuff. We would build. I had a neighbor named Landon, who, and a couple of neighbors in that neighborhood, just a couple of the boys. We would build these forts in the woods with just stuff that we have found, or like if somebody was working on some construction project at another house and they'd had some discarded pieces of metal or wood or tarp or whatever, we would just drag that shit and like take it into the woods, and we would build these like amazing things. And they had these ponds where we would build these like second story ledges and we would fish off of them. And like it was such a tactile upbringing. And I think tactile is a really key word because we just would move around all the time in some sort of capacity. We would play with Nerf guns and we would build things and we would climb and it was just a very just explorative upbringing and a childhood that just allowed for that. And so in talking about privilege and talking about opportunity, I think it's one of like the biggest ones I can say with certainty, and like how it develops your social skills, how it develops your ability to work with others. Like you don't think about them when you're doing it because you're a kid, you're just playing. But play as a function of being a human being and just mammals and animals in general. That's how you learn stuff. And we can talk about this more about how playfulness suffuses everything. It can suffuse movement. It can suffuse your health. And talking about acting, play is literally what we do, but it's like the core of so many things in our life. And so when I think about my upbringing, I think about one of the first things is playfulness, and talking about seeds in your life that sprout later that you don't really think about. There's a core memory that I had where we had a trampoline in our backyard when we were kids, and my sister and I, Sarah, we'd play this game where she would be the protagonist in this video game, and I would be the one who would build the world around her. So I would play all of the enemies, the wise gurus along the way, the guy that works at the shop to arm her with whatever gold that she's managed to accrue and all this stuff. And I had this pool noodle that I won from Do you remember? I don't know if you remember this. Do you remember Accelerated Reader?
No.
Oh God. For those of you listening to this, I really hope if there's anybody, just validate me on this. There's this program called Accelerated Reader where you would, it's a computerized system in the public schools. I don't know if it's still there, probably not, but they would have a massive amount of tests for books that they would have in the library. I don't know who wrote them, but it's like if you read the book, you could take an exam on the computer, and depending on how well you did, if you passed, you would get a certain amount of points, and it would log those points for you. So it would encourage you. It turned it into like a game-based system to read more books, earn more points, and then you could spend those points for just random shit. And I won a pool noodle once with my points, and that was the coolest toy I had ever gotten because I used it for so many things. You were a kid.
Yeah.
That pool noodle wasn't just a pool noodle. It was a sword, it was a lightsaber, it was a tail, and that I brought that into that little game with my sister, and we would take stuff and just make it into whatever it is that we wanted to make it into. And like when you do that for long enough, that's just part of who you are, right? Like the seed of imagination, playfulness, all of those things. It was such a huge part of my life. So I attribute so much of where I am now to those to that as a foundation. Now shifting gears a bit, when we're talking about school and growing up, and when you're talking about deeper things like identity, religion, racism, bullying, like all of these things, like that was a part of it.
Was it?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
not don't want to like downplay it, but I also don't want to like make it worse than it actually was, because I think there will always be shitty people wherever you go.
Always.
Always. Like it doesn't matter, and geographically, like you can find those people everywhere. I'm very fortunate in that where I grew up in London at South Laurel High School, I had some of the best, like closest friends. And as a tangent, when I think about Life of Pi, when I think about Pi as a character, for those of you that don't know the story of Life of Pi, Pi in his upbringing identifies as a fully practicing Muslim, Hindu, and Christian, which I find awesome.
I loved that part of it.
I love it.
I loved that part of the show, yeah.
Because you're giving validity and credence and just value towards all of these different things, and you can derive truth from all of it to find understanding and betterment for your own life. I'm like, it's beautiful. When I think back on how I grew up, I think about those friends that were very, very Christian, but I would learn so much from them, and they were true Christians in the capacity of like they were so welcoming and kind and understanding and inclusive and educative. Like it was awesome to just like learn, and there was a mutual exchange of that. I felt safe enough to tell them more about what growing up as a Muslim in a place where there weren't a lot of Muslims, and for them that was an experience. We got to share so much of our culture, and there was also happened to be a thriving Hindu community there as well. And one of my closest spiritual advisors and like a second mother to me, her name is Sumita Chatterjee. I've known her again almost all of my life. I mean, it has given me so much wisdom in terms of her perspective on things and on her culture, on meditation, on like just finding peace. And I think of that trifecta of people just imbuing you with lessons and imbuing you with wisdom. And even though there was difficulty in terms of people that didn't understand, that looked at me and saw, especially in a post 9/11 society, people were angry, people were scared, and people would lash out because of those things. And there's so much ignorance underneath that fueled it. And I think when I was growing up, I was rightfully angry and scared reciprocally.
Of course.
Just because it was so unwarranted. But I think in looking back in hindsight, you can look back with kinder eyes or just more understanding eyes, and it doesn't absolve any of it, but it does give you a sense of just like understanding where is it coming from.
Yeah.
And I
It
think
wasn't personal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, and just when you're talking about identity, and this is the last thing I'll sort of touch on. When I think about how I grew up in Kentucky in this in this sort of cultural shifts, right? Like I would go home and I would speak in Gujarati, which was our native language that I spoke with my family, in a Muslim household, and it was like almost like a very contained sort of just way of living, and I would go home to that, we would exist in that, but then I'd go to school and just be surrounded by other white kids, and you just do your best to fit in. And it became this game of hats. I'm like, of the code switching of like, I'd go home and this is who I was. I'd go to school and this is who I was. And it was almost like acting from a young age, right? Like what mask are you putting on today to survive in whatever environment that you're in? And a lot of that is unconscious, and you're not really thinking about the ramifications of that or the psychological impact that could have on you until much later. And that wasn't until college that I really had to it was a reckoning of selves, right? Of understanding how much of myself I had compromised in terms of pushing away my heritage, my identity, because of the fear of how other people would react to it, because I had a lot of negative feedback towards that side of myself. I would literally whitewash myself to try to not ruffle any feathers so I could just, move through the world. And that was tough, I think that took some time to really figure out like what I was doing. And, there were conversations had with lots of different people. Therapy helped tremendously, and talking with other people that knew that, especially in college, when you meet other people, because I was still in Kentucky, but the world opened up a little bit more, and I got to expose myself to other Desi people, South Asian people, and make those friends, make those connections, and develop a little bit more, frontal lobe to recognize these things and have conversations around them. But in totality, I think I look back on all of it with gratitude that I grew up in which is in effectively Trump country, what you would identify now. Because I think it's as difficult as it can be, it's given me a lot more pause to just recognize the people individually and understand where they're coming from with a lot of the stuff, even if a lot of it is coming from a place of not knowing. And yeah, and just beyond that, like the values that I've learned from growing up in Kentucky, like there are some very deep family values. There are very deep communal values. There are very deep ties to nature that exist there. And there are things that I still carry with me today and that I'm proud to carry with me today. And like, even though there's so much shit that has gone on in the state of Kentucky and in the politics that were involved, I'm proud to say we're like where I grew up there, and so much of what is cultivated in my life now is from the seeds that happened there. So that's it in a nutshell.
One of my favorite parts of Pi, going back to you were talking about how he identifies as these like three different religions, like, and he incorporates all of them, was the pushback that he got from the religious leaders being like, well, no, Pi's coming here on Friday. It's like, no, he's coming to me on Friday. And then you as Pi are explaining like, why can't I do all of it? Why
Yeah.
can't I learn from you? And seeing that difficulty of trying to reconcile, why do I need to choose?
Yes.
Why can't I take lessons from everything? And why is it so important to you that I fit into your box? Why can't I almost like make my own box? I loved that aspect of the show, and how you portrayed it, and how the other actors really took on their role. It was the show as a whole was incredible. I encourage everybody to go see it. But I loved that, and I think it is an important message of today, not even just traditional religion, because we can make anything our religion. Anything that we can identify as can become our religion. Even, I mean, if we want to stay within the religious context, like even atheism
Yeah.
can be a religion, right? Like, so whatever you identify as can become your religion. And I think it's a wonderful way that you look at it in terms of, what can I take from everything to better myself in every way, rather than, well, let me just put myself in this one singular box and shut everyone else out who's not inside of it.
There was this and I don't want to butcher it, but there was like I read it, and it was some sort of Hindu philosophy where effectively it's like all religions, major religions, minor religions, whatever you want to call it, every major belief source has an element of truth, like a core within each of them, that is often masked by the dogma and the politics around, and like there's so much, there's and a lot of it is history, you know, there's so much wrapped up around it, but when you dig deep down to the core of each of those things, there is a nugget of truth that can, if you can find that nugget, it will lead you to a more well-rounded sense of enlightenment about the world. And it gives truth to each of those different factions of religions as a means of living your life. It's like, it doesn't matter what car you drive, as long as you're not being a dick on the road and you get to the same place, like, more power to you. And I think about that a lot nowadays, because when you look at like each institution, when I think about Christianity, I'm like, what is the love of Jesus? Like, at that core, like, what is, if that is the core of the religion, what does that mean? And what is there to learn, even if you're in a completely different religion? Like, what do you internalize from that? Islam literally translates to peace. You know, and it's like, where can you find the truths of all of these things, rather than pushing everything away to protect the only thing that you know? And I don't know. I think about it a lot more now.
It's an important way to think, because what I love about what you're explaining here is you're essentially looking at everything, even things that you might not, quote unquote, belong to, and you're trying to find, well, what's true about it? Whereas what many people do is they try and find what they disagree on. And this is how I notice people approach debates. People approach debates from the complete wrong direction. What people will do when they try and debate incorrectly, which is how most people do it, is they try and win.
Yeah.
They try and say, well, what can I say to beat you? What can I say to prove you wrong? Where can I find your faults, your incorrectness, blah, 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 blah. The right way to approach a debate is to find common ground. What do we agree on first and foremost, and then proliferate, then work from there.
Yeah.
And I think that it is the foundation of what you do very well. Is you're so positive, you're so optimistic, and the only way to have positivity and optimism in life is to find, well, what is true? What do we agree on? What can we come together with? And when you're approaching people from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different cultures, different races, religions, whatever it is, how can we find truth in what they have, and then how can hopefully they reciprocate and find truth in what I have. And when you approach, whether it's a debate, a conversation, just trying to learn from how can I find truth in what this person is telling me or showing me or exhibiting in whatever capacity, it immediately becomes less combative. It's no longer, well, let me find what's wrong with you, what's wrong with what you're saying. Let me find what's right. And then from there we can, usually what I've found is, and this is whether it's political discussions, religious discussions, fitness discussions, whatever it is, it immediately makes it we're on the same team.
Yeah.
We're all team human, if you want to call it that. So let's start from there, and then work backwards. And even if we disagree on on what solution is the best solution, we can agree on the right outcome, which I feel like is how we're going to bring us together.
It's honestly why I love theater as a space, as an art form, versus a movie, right? I think that when you find distinctions in those mediums, I think it's why theater will always like be my first love. I want to do more movies. Like I want to do, that's sort of a
both
trajectory.
wonderful. Yeah.
And they're both important and in their own applications and how story is, metabolized. But I think theater is so special because it's live.
Yeah, it's live.
I
love that.
And every performance is different because every human that is on stage that day has different energy. Their day, you don't know what's going on in their day. Something might be different in terms of their line delivery, their perception of the world. Like it doesn't matter. Like
maybe
it's
you want
different
to
every
try
time.
something different that day.
Literally, yeah. And I could tell you so many stories about how Life of Pi, like, even every day that if you come to see the show one day and you come the very next day, you have an entire different roster of puppeteers operating the same, or like operating the puppets that just have different quirks. They have different physical bodies. They have different, Richard Parker, the tiger. We have 3 different rotating tiger heads that take over the job throughout the week. And each of them have their own like personality. Like, one is definitely more of a wild card. One is a little bit more like genteel. One is more regal, and
your reactions change as a result of that.
As a result of that, and I think
that.
when you think about the audience, when you think about people in the space witnessing this thing, this is why I think, I don't know if it's a hot take, but it's a take. I think theater is akin to church, in the sense that you are gathering as a community. You don't know everybody, but you're gathering together to witness something. A story that's being told together in a shared space, in a shared breath, and leaving with either with a goal of whoever is performing to educate, to entertain, to whatever.
I love that. It's a great perspective that I hadn't thought of. I love that.
Yeah.
It's true. Every time I've left a show, any show, there are lessons that you take home from it. And Pi was particularly poignant. And
chock full of them.
My favorite part is, I was talking to my wife afterwards. I was like, what did you take from it? Like, what did you perceive from it? And
Can I hear? I'm so curious.
I don't want to speak on her behalf. I want to speak on her behalf. For me, I mean, there was a lot. To finish the point, and then I'll go back to it. It's every show you go to, whether it was designed that way or not, you take lessons from it. And I mean, even like whether it was Kinky Boots or whether it's Wicked or whether it's the Harry Potter, the Cursed Child, or whether it's Lion King, whatever it is, every show I've been to, I leave. Even the shows that I've seen multiple times, I'm always leaving with a new lesson, a new story, which is to church, to synagogue, to mosque, whatever it is. Hopefully leave that sermon, leave that day with, how can I be better? What have I learned from this? With Pi, one of the major ones that I loved was the taking things from every different religion that was presented there. But it was for me, I remember being overwhelmed with joy and emotion. It was very emotional, that show, and the way that it was presented and told was that, and I don't want to give it away. I don't want to like have any spoilers, but the way that the story was told, and how each animal represented someone else, someone specific. It meant a lot to me. It meant a lot to me. And by the time I left, and my wife and I were talking in the car, it was just it literally the entire car ride home, even after the multiple hour show, it took up the entire car ride because it was just, let's just talk about this. What does this mean in real life? How does this relate to today? Which, by the way, I mean, every religious text, whether it's the Quran, whether it's the Tanakh, whether it's the New Testament, whatever it is, every religious text, when you read it, it's like, oh, this has so much carryover to today, to right now. Messages that were written hundreds and thousands of years ago relate to today. And I feel like so much of that is embodied through theater. And relating to what you were saying around movies, I think that can happen with a movie, but I feel like it's less. I feel like typically with a movie, you might think, oh man, that was an amazing movie. Let me think about how it relates to right now. But I've never pondered over, and maybe this is a me thing, I've never pondered over a movie for days and weeks and months at a time. But I have with shows. I have with live theater productions. There's something about it that the messaging is delivered in a different way. Maybe it's because it's live. Maybe it's because of that shared community experience. And maybe it's because I took part in it when I was younger and I relate to it. But there's something about a live show that it's similar to me like stand-up comedy. I'll think of stand-up comics. I'll think of just one line that they'll say. It will haunt me in a good way for months. And I'll just replay it over and over and over. I'll replay the messaging. I'll replay the delivery of it. I'll replay the timing, the tonality. And with live in-person shows, it is such an unbelievably incredible experience that I just think it's an incredible art form. And I mean, it's an art form that's lasted for thousands of years.
And will continue to, because it's such a story is at its foundation. It's like it's like an integral part of what it means to be a human being, and to pass on knowledge, to pass off information, to grow, like you said, as people. And how do you not just when you think about education, people are always talking about how do I make this more entertaining. Quick tangent point, like when you have been making this video series for kids.
Yes. Workouts for kids.
Workouts for
Coach
kids.
Jay.
That's super playful and silly and fun. And it is like a perfect example. Like you're taking them on this adventure with a purpose in mind about like what do you hope that they get out of it at the end. But at the core of it is that they're with you.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that's like a beautiful thing that we might not think about when we think about just the media in our life. You know, like we're so sometimes mindless about the consumption of this stuff that I'm like, you realize that there are people creating this stuff, for better and for worse.
Yep.
People with agendas that create these things. And when you're a little bit more discerning about maybe the intention, or at the very least, like having a little bit more, just a tiny bit of distance away from it, to just recognize, what is the story trying to tell me?
It is mindless. It is, and that's, I think, one of the reasons it's so dangerous.
Yeah,
you just see it purely at its face value, unless you deliberately say, "Hold on, there is a human or even humans who spent time creating this content deliberately to get a reaction out of me." That was why this was created. And we can dive into, well, because the more that they get a reaction, the more it's going to show up in your algorithm, which means they make more money, they get more followers. Because of this, that reaction that you have was by design, and it's a system, it's a science designed to make you feel a certain way. To have that distance and say, why am I seeing this? Why am I having this reaction? What went into creating this? Having that distance enough so that you can be more aware of the reaction you're having, and is it warranted? Is it positive for you? Is it negative for you? Yeah. Is it worth your time and energy and an emotional investment in this right now? It's I think it's very important, and now more than ever, because we have this screen in our pocket, you can just take it out. Going to a show, you got to plan it. You got to put it in your calendar. You got to drive to the show. You got to show your tickets. Like it's an investment to then put yourself in that seat and watch that show.
So we're transitioning now into a topic I'm like, I've been thinking so much about this. There was a book that I read called Stolen Focus. Have you heard about it? Read it at all?
I've never heard anyone mention this, so I'm excited.
There's a book called Stolen Focus. The author's name is Johann Hari, and I'll preface by saying, like, I think some people see him as an author as somewhat controversial. There's some stuff around it. I derived a nugget of truth from reading this book, regardless of whatever other people say about it. And his whole thesis is that there are two resources that are the most valuable things for human beings. It's your time and it's your attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And every aspect of the modern digital era, not even just the digital, just the infrastructure around us, especially in the US right now, is built off of the incentive of fracturing your attention span so they can make more money.
Yes.
And in doing so, the secondary thing is the loss of our attention is what is killing us in so many ways. And so when you talk about, we'll kind of start with theater for example, long form anything. Coming to a show for a long-term thing, sitting without your phone for 2 hours to just watch and listen is something that is so antithetical to this.
Scrolling, yeah.
And just like quick. The next thing. Where's your mind going? You had written, or you had talked about this on, I think it was on how to become a personal trainer podcast. Is why I fucking love you and Mike. You had talked about one of the most valuable things that you can start doing as a young coach, as a young trainer, is to write long form articles, to invest in that skill set, to write long form things, because on a practical level, you are appealing to the people who are wanting that kind of content to begin with, which are probably better off like in your
as a client. They're a better
right?
client, yeah.
Exactly. And I don't know, the more that I think about long form attention and the loss of it in so many different aspects of our current world, a lot of it is unavoidable, but a lot of it is just like, I don't know, like a lot of it is on the individual about like what steps are we taking, but a lot of it is just built in such a way that like not many people know that the algorithm that is based. There's a story in Stolen Focus. They talk about YouTube, and they say like the degrees of separation between somebody searching World War II history to finding fringe right-wing Holocaust denial is not that far.
Yeah.
And that's terrifying
Yeah.
to think about, like how you can, it's designed to start with something that is very innocuous and about historical long-form fact to something that is very vitriol, is built to elicit a reaction that will keep you
Yes.
in this engine of getting angrier and getting just more invested in this, in spending more time to absorb more and consume more and do all this stuff. It's built to do this.
Yes. They're designed specifically to keep you on that platform.
Yes.
They will. I remember in the old days of Instagram, number one, the only things you'd see were from people who you followed.
Yeah.
And when you saw all the most recent posts, it literally said, "You're all caught up." I don't know if you remember this. You'd scroll down, "You're all caught up," and you're like, "Cool, now I'm done." You'd get off. And then at a certain point, they were like, "We don't want you leaving, because if you leave, then we lose ad revenue."
Yeah.
Because advertisers pay to make sure that you're so anything they can do to keep your eyes on that screen, it's the same. It's literally a slot machine. It's an addictive. It's the same algorithmic model as a slot machine. But my good friend Josh Smith, he's a psychologist. He's coming on the podcast soon. And we're going to talk about this. the way he framed it to me is it's not even just like one slot machine. It's like you're playing 50 slot machines at the same time.
Yeah.
And the slot machine knows when you're getting a little bit tired of something and maybe you're losing interest, so it'll feed you something different. And so you're playing 50 different slot machines at the same time. And that's how it will lead you down this path of like, well, I started with World War II history, but then I'm going to go down this other stream towards like Holocaust denial or whatever it is,
Yeah.
because whatever we can do to keep your eyes on this screen so that we can get you to see more ads so that we can make more revenue from these ad dollars, that's how it works. That is specifically how it's designed. And then to transition all the way back to theaters and maybe theater versus movie, I don't remember, unfortunately, the last time I watched a movie without checking my phone. I'm ashamed to say it, but if I'm just sitting down on my couch, dude, I'll have two screens.
Yeah.
I'll have the movie, and then maybe I'll pause the movie, like, oh, let me just check. Like, why can't I just fucking sit with my phone in my pocket or put it on the counter? Or if I do that, it feels like a challenge. Like, I'm going to challenge myself to put my phone on the counter so I don't watch it for this hour and a half movie. Like, that's a challenge?
Yeah.
Like, you're that weak? That's a challenge for you? But that it's the truth. Whereas when I go to a show, not only is it just part of the rules, like you don't want to be that douchebag.
etiquette,
Like you just don't do it. But almost it's because you've invested so much to get there. It's you just don't check your phone. It's man, it's a really wild time.
You touched on something. So in the book, the person who invented the piece of code for infinite scroll,
Yeah.
they interviewed that person
Oh, in Stolen Focus?
in Stolen Focus in this book. You should read the book. It's very cool.
I will.
But I think I don't. Sorry, it's been a couple of years now. But I think the person who invented that piece of code deeply, like, I'm pretty sure they like regretted it after the fact.
Really?
They're like, yeah, because like that's the thing, right? That's the slot machine. Like if there was an end point to your scrolling journey and you could just put it away to be like, you're all caught up.
Yeah.
Wonderful. That's great.
It's the Oppenheimer
but now
of social media.
It's opened the floodgates. It's what keeps people glued to the screen, and it's just it really is like when you talk about that, the struggle to put away the phone. I'll tell you about this. The book talks about individual solutions, and I think that the thing I liked about the book was also systemic solutions.
Oh, cool.
So it's not just on you, the consumer, which is so. We need to talk more about this because so much of this is by design by these bigger companies that we don't have a say in how these things are designed. And like the infrastructure, the digital infrastructure of this world, they're like, okay, here's what you can do to spend less time on this shit. I'm like, why did you design it this way to begin with? So there's personal responsibility and there's systemic responsibility, and
they both can coexist.
They both need to coexist in where we are right now, and more of it needs to be. It's like my tangent is recycling. Recycling is them putting off on the consumer to be like, this is what you should do to use less, to put the waste back into the ecosystem. I'm like, why are you creating all of the fucking plastic to then put it on us to then have the responsibility to do this? Like it's in the manufacturing. So like it's both, right?
Yeah.
It's both. But where was I going with this? Oh my gosh. I use this thing. I wish I had it with me, but there's an app on my phone called Brick. Have you heard of this?
Yeah, I've heard of it. I haven't used it.
It's dope. It's very, very helpful for those of this is my little piece to you all. If any of you are struggling with phone addiction, if you want to change your relationship to your cell phone in terms of how you use it, and you find yourself caught in that loop of doom scrolling, of any of this stuff, I really recommend this thing, because the screen time app thing where it's like, you've reached your limit and you could just hit ignore.
Right.
You're like, 15 more minutes or indefinitely. It's such a reflex.
Right.
You're just like, oh, whatever the fuck. Like, I'm not going to listen to this. It is a literal, it's a brick. It's a physical device that is a fridge magnet, essentially, that has a little chip built into it, and you scan it like a tap to pay type thing. And you can input in the app in your phone whatever apps that you want to limit or block. And you can set schedules around it too. So you can, if you're caught, first thing in the morning, you pick up your phone rather than greeting your partner or whatever, which is fucked up. Don't want to be that person. You can literally set timers to be like, all right, from this hour to onwards, my phone will be bricked. You have no access to it. It literally says like it has a cute little messaging thing. It's like, go back to living.
I love that.
Or like, go back to what matters. And the only way that you can unbrick your phone is to literally take your phone to that physical device, to the brick.
Wow.
So if you take that brick and you put it somewhere else, far away, I know people that leave it in their cars. Some of them are hardcore and they're like, I leave it at work.
Oh, wow.
And like the only time I can check it is like maybe like a couple of hours at work, but then by the time I get home, it's whatever. Or there are a couple of different relationships that people could build with it. But I found it tremendously helpful.
I love that.
Because even in just deleting the app off your phone, you could re-download it.
Exactly.
If the urge is there, and that's the sad part, man. Like the more I've looked at it, about just how many people are struggling with this, and especially where we are in this day and age with social media being what it is, and how it's both a source of connection with people, but it's also how people are getting their news, and it's also how people are doing X, Y, and Z, like running their businesses. Like there's no boundaries around it anymore. So I think like the more tools that people are aware of to help balance their relationship with it, I think is a tremendously helpful thing. I'm curious about your thoughts about it.
I'm interested to see systemically from a legal perspective how it will play out, because I don't know, and I sort of doubt we'll see it in our lifetime because lawmakers tend to be very old, and I mean, I see lawmakers who are talking about this stuff, and I know you've never used it. Like the way you talk about social media, like you don't know what you're talking about. Like I remember when I was a kid and we would play Xbox, my mom would call it like the X station, and like mix Xbox and PlayStation together. It's like I see these lawmakers talking about these social media platforms in the same way. It's like, oh, you just have a script that you're being told to, but you don't understand how it works. You don't understand the issues with it. So I don't know how that's going to play out, but I'll give you a current thought that I have. That is a one teeny tiny fraction of the issue. We already have laws for defamation and libel. We already have that. But we don't see them playing out in the same way on social media. And for example, one thing that I see happening globally and horrifically here in the US, but globally, is a tremendous amount of division being created specifically due to social media. And what's happening is, as one microcosm, one small example, is people will take a clip of someone and they will deliberately manipulate the clip to make it appear as though that person is saying one thing when they take it out of context entirely. And it's a deliberate process that they deliberately took something out of context and misframed it to make that person appear differently than what they were actually saying. And in my opinion, that should be defamation, in which if you are putting out publicly information about an individual that lacks sufficient context and deliberately frames them in a way that's not who they actually are, not what they represent, that's a defamation of character. But I don't see any legal repercussions for that yet. Whereas in any other circumstance, if you lie about someone publicly, if you defame them, if you do something that could hurt them or their career or their family, like that, there are legal consequences for that. But I haven't seen anything like that on social media. And in my opinion, that's one of the major issues we're seeing on social media right now. And if we're talking politically, we see it across the aisle. Like both sides do it. And I even hate calling them sides because it just further divides us. But humans from all different belief spectrums will deliberately use a real quote but lack the actual context solely to create division. And then you have to ask, well, why are they doing that? Why? Like people talk about they and like the higher powers. It's not even the higher powers. It's people with like strong ideological beliefs with essentially financial incentives. That's what it's coming from. It's this financial incentive of let me get more followers, let me get more likes, let me get more views, because all that leads to more money. And in my opinion, that is at this point in time on September 26th, 2025, one of the biggest issues dividing the United States, because it's very easy to frame someone in a way that makes them appear evil. Which, if someone's evil, then the only thing that you should do is remove that person. If someone's truly evil, people have this conversation all the time. Like, would you go kill Hitler as a baby? It's like, well, he's evil. He did a horrible thing. So, like, that would be the only necessary thing that you could think. Like, of course you would. So when you frame people in that capacity, I think it becomes a way to justify and normalize violence against individuals. And so for me, my hope, and I'm a very small government person. I don't want government ruling over everything we do, but there has to be laws in place, because I believe with every ounce of my being that the way it's being used now and the way that we're being manipulated now through it is causing way more harm, and there are essentially no repercussions for it whatsoever. There's actually currently only reward.
Then how, like, because it's like a Pandora's box situation, right? Like, this is open. This is like, and I don't know. I think about this more and more, being of a generation where I remember where none of this existed.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then it just proliferated so fast.
Yeah.
That it's like, even though we adapt more or less, there's still so much behind this that I have no answer.
None.
In terms of, what is the solution to something this big, like a machine that is, outside of just, whatever your personal responsibility is to protect your own mind from just how much division and just vitriol and how much stuff that you consume on a day-to-day basis on these things. And instead, like, again, this is, sort of my take on, if you can't fix that, what are some things that we can return to? And this is why, again, I think long form attention.
Yeah, agreed.
Long form attention, like, so much of what divides, and to your point about, like, these clips of these out of context clips are in service of people having super short attention spans and wanting just the quickest thing to latch onto, and then fucking go.
Yes.
Versus, like, sitting down, reading a full book, reading a full article, listening to a whole speech, listening to like a fucking 2-hour thing, just like sitting and watching. You don't look at your phone. You're not fragmenting. You're just sitting there and you're listening and taking notes and trying to, like, keep your sense of judgment, which is natural. Like, that we do that. We have our own internalized beliefs and biases and histories and cultures, and all of those things come into play. There's validity, but it's how do we build that literacy again? How do we build they talk about that, right? Like, digital literacy, especially now with with AI now thrown into the mix, and everything that's coming with people, especially the lawmakers, not knowing what's real, what's AI, what they're blaming as what's actually true as AI, and you're like, what timeline are we in nowadays that we just it's chaos. And so, where, in my opinion, as a small person who doesn't really, like, I do my I have my bastions of joy and understanding in the world. I think we need to reclaim our ability to pay attention. We need to reclaim our ability to sit down for long periods of time and not and fight against fragmentation. Yeah. Both in our own minds and as people. The literal fragmentation of people. Yeah. And I think, at least, going back to your original question of, like, who I am as a person, I find unity and joy through storytelling and movement. And I hope that it is my purpose given by God and opportunities and, like, everything that's around me to use these vehicles to bring people together. And I think like when you talk about health, and this is like a slight pivot, like when you talk about health in the physical, you talk about health in the mental. Those things are connected. I
Of
think it connects
course.
to these issues too, right? Like mental health and phones and attention and all of those things, those are related. But physical health
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
tied to those things as well. Like the correlation is like
Well,
they're so linked.
this leads us into, I think, one of the ways that the individual can combat this, which is through movement. And you are, I have to say, the way that you move is unbelievable. And that was one of the coolest things that I saw with you as an actor performing in Pi. There are many different types of shows and performances. Some are more vocal, some are more just based on the actual how you're acting. But with Pi, it's a very physical role, or at least you make it a physical role, the way that you perform it. And I remember telling my wife, I would whisper her during the show, I'd be like, "Look at his ankle mobility." I'd be like, "Look at the way that he landed so softly." And your movement was art, and it was beautiful. And I know you love movement, you love staying physically fit and active, but you do it in a beautiful way. You do it in a form. It's a form of art, and I would love to talk about that. Whether we tied into mental health or otherwise, I would just love to hear your thoughts on movement as a whole.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you. That's a deeply kind compliment, and I take it very like both seriously and not seriously at the same time. I'm just like yeah, like it's because I think at the end of the day, it's always been play. It's always been play. It comes back down to that, and my history with movements, I again, it's privilege that I grew up being able to have a lot of like extracurriculars and do lots of different sports. I played soccer for almost 13 years.
What
I
position?
yeah, lots, but I was forward for a while because I was fast.
Yeah,
I was
you
like
are
pretty
fast.
pretty
Yeah,
pretty quick. But then I ended up in midfield for a very long time, and I actually loved it.
I love
I
midfield.
loved midfield because you get the best of both
Yeah,
worlds, and you are the bridge between both.
yeah.
And I liked being in that position because I think there was a part of me that this is before I understood stage fright, but there's a part of me that like playing a forward and getting ready to like score a goal, as exhilarating as it could be, it was fucking terrifying. So I liked being in a nice, safe little mid position where I could just exist in both worlds. But I also got like the most conditioning because of it,
Yes,
because you're running
yeah.
up and
I
down
love
all the
midfield.
time.
Yeah.
It's the best. I played tennis for a couple of years. I really followed in my brother's footsteps. I owe so much of like the early parts of my life to just following in my older brother's footsteps. Abbas, if you're listening to this, I love you, man. He is an incredible person, and he just did so many different things. But for me, the individual movement voice that I found for myself started with martial arts. I did Taekwondo classes for a long time. We talked about jujitsu for a little while and taking some master classes there. And Muay Thai, I found so much fun.
Yeah.
Just so fun and brutal to watch, but also very, very gratifying just as a discipline. And I, it really, all of those things over time, they're pieces in, they're ingredients in a stew that just start to bubble and create things over time. The final ingredient for me started with parkour. And that was in 2016 at Swift Movement Studio in Cincinnati. Me and Hunter, the guy I was telling you about, the guy that got me into acting, was like, we had just finished college. We had just moved into our first like adult living situation outside of college, and we were working in Cincinnati in various acting capacities. We were doing the starving artist life and just figuring it out. And he heard about this gym and was like, dude, do you want to go? I'm like, fuck yeah, let's do it. And parkour. Yeah, yeah, there it is. And here's my tangent about parkour. For those of you who have seen The Office,
It's one of the best scenes of all time.
where Jim is like, this is parkour, and
Internet sensation,
internet sensation
2005.
started with the Bond films, and for Michael it was point A is delusion and point B is the hospital. I found it hilarious, and to this day, man, when I tell people I'm like I do parkour, the first thing parkour, parkour. It's the Russian code word that just it just triggers it. And it's which I love. I love The Office. I love that scene. Andy jumping into the empty refrigerator cart is still like one of my favorite things.
So funny.
When Dwight like hops onto his back, he's like, "Fuck!" Andy's like, "Get off!" Hilarious. But that was also my first impression. Like that I had watched that, and then we're going to a gym. I'm like, okay, what is this about? And truly, like, what is this about? And I had no other context going into it. It was literally just like kind of going in blind. And they had opened their doors in 2015, so they were new. They were fresh. Seth and Matt were the two owners and designers of the gym. They had built a lot of these obstacles by hand.
Oh,
They're
wow.
like so handy and crafty. And that's a lot of the community for parkour, because it's such a young discipline and a young sport, and not many people know about it. There's not a lot of investment that people have for this kind of stuff, so a lot of it is fucking scrappy. It was such an amazing time in my life for me to discover locomotion in a way that I have never experienced before. In a way that spoke to me on a level that I'm like, this is human movement. It's like that sounds so weird and cliche and abstract, but I'm like, this is like a level of like a new dimension of what the human body is capable of. And I'd love to just speak more about the history of it, because not many people know about it, right? Like,
I don't know about it.
So I'll tell you. So it was the early 1900s. It was like 1902. There was a volcanic island somewhere in the Caribbean that there was a volcanic eruption, and there was a French naval base, I think, situated there at the time, and there was this massive volcanic eruption that was devastating, destroyed like so much of what was happening there, and obviously there was chaos. And it was this guy, he was a French naval lieutenant named George, I don't know if it's Herbert or Herbert, I don't know what the correct pronunciation is, who was there at the time witnessing this all happening. And he noticed something, that the indigenous people of that island, when this was all happening, he noticed like all of the Europeans that were on the island were struggling to escape, because the infrastructure of the world that they had known was destroyed. It was gone. And they, like, in the evacuation attempts, like, they were struggling so much. But he looked at the indigenous people, and they were just fluidly moving around through the environment and helping people along the way. And the key things that he noticed was altruism, strength, grace, fluidity, and like all of these aspects of their movement. And he arrived at this philosophy of their movement, which was being strong to be helpful to others. Which I was like, like that is a key component of the philosophy of parkour, is be strong to be helpful for others. And I think, like, when you think about so much of life, like what we aspire to as fitness professionals and as people who want to inspire people through strength and movement, why? Like, why? It is because to embolden yourself with strength is to be able to reach down and pull people up with you. And that's what he witnessed through this, what he called the natural movement, or the natural method of watching this. So he was so inspired that he used he studied and learned this movement form and integrated it into the French military. He like used that as like obstacle training and the how special forces were trained using this as a very practical way of navigating terrain, navigating the world, and it became as a communal definition that there's still a lot of conversation around what is the definition of parkour, but the one that I have found has taught to me that I really agree with is it's a method of training your body and your mind by progressively overcoming obstacles. And I like that very specifically as a definition, because when you say progressively overcoming obstacles, progression is a key word. And obstacles are subjective because everybody's obstacles in life are different. Everybody's bodies are different. Everybody's capacities are different. So their progression to overcome their obstacles are different from another person's. And like honoring those differences is also, what makes a good coach, right?
Yes.
To understand like everybody's starting point to then get them to where they need to go. And so, we're in France. They have integrated this thing, and I'll condense the history, but essentially, there was two pioneers who really took the understanding of the sport from the military and integrated that in their hometowns as just a movement discipline. They used that to essentially create what they called tracers, or the path, and utilizing parkour as a way to find the path. And that could be parkour, as it's known, as moving from point A to point B as efficiently as possible. That's like one definition. But there was also a splinter that sort of happened at the time where one of the co-founders, Sebastian Foucan, who was the guy at the beginning of the Bond film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he was amazing. Oh my gosh.
So he, I believe it was Raymond Bell and Sebastian Foucan were the two sort of co-founders who took that original concept of parkour and like nurtured it and developed it into its sort of next history. And they sort of had a parallel split where one wanted to really develop parkour, which is more built on efficiency. The other was developed sort of a cousin to it called free running. When he moved to the UK, they sort of had his own term called free running. So sometimes you hear about parkour and free running. They sort of fall under a similar category where free running is more expressive movement. That's where like people are throwing flips and they're doing more like creative. It's not necessarily about the efficiency, it's about expression.
I love that.
And so now you have these two paths of movement where one is about movement efficiency and power and being able to like utilize your environment to move through it with grace and power and efficiency, and the other, which is about creativity and expression. And that now, getting to just sort of where it exists nowadays, you have different governing bodies and people that are trying to really try to unite the core of the sport. And there are some people that want to keep it as a non-competitive discipline, as like a discipline of training. There are other people that thrive in the competitive world for it, and they want to test it in speed or skill or style. And in my opinion, I think both can exist.
100%.
Both need to exist. I think, and because it appeals to different kinds of people.
Yeah.
And people can derive their own sense of fulfillment from the discipline, from the sport, through those applications. And it is a beautiful, beautiful sport, and something that I think has completely reshaped my relationship to the world to infrastructure, because parkour is not necessarily meant to just be applied in a gym. It's everywhere. It's outdoors. It's the natural method that he saw in the very beginning when people were moving through trees and climbing and going over and under and swinging. And, it's what we as a species are capable of. And on a personal level, it's like appealing to this inner child, like Tarzan, Ninja,
Yeah.
Spider-Man, like all of these things. Like it embodies the best of all of those things. And I am so grateful to have stumbled into it and found it, because I think that was the missing piece for what my current philosophy has developed into, which is like parkour as a philosophy for everything, because we all encounter obstacles in our life. It can be in the physical realm, it can be in the intellectually, it could be spiritually, it can all be all of these things, but to develop a progression of ways to overcome them that are different from person to person. Like, that's the beautiful thing about parkour. Like, to get from one place to another, everybody can find multiple ways to get there, and all can be valid in their own ways. But each of those different ways can utilize different attributes of athletics to get you there. And that's what I really enjoy about the sport when I talk about it, is the application of different attributes of athletics that we don't really think about in modern training. And I'm curious to hear like some of your thoughts on this as well. Like, when we think about strength, it's very, it's so broad, like there is like the strength for a power lifter is different from somebody who's just trying to bodybuild necessarily. Like, you have different variables that you're trying to manipulate to get there. But nobody really talks about dexterity or agility, not like in those spheres. Like, but when you're talking about athleticism as a broader concept about being like a hybrid athlete who is capable of applying themselves to lots of different things, I think parkour is one of the biggest boons that you could give yourself as an athlete, to just invest a little bit of time to just learn what it is, take a couple of classes, and see how that can apply yourself to whatever sport that you're doing. We had a bunch of football players come in. We taught them
I love that.
a master class to be like, all right, y'all are big. You're very big, but you also have to be fast. You have to be able to cut and take like different direction changes. You have to be able to adapt to your environment very quickly. And getting to like show them what we have to offer in terms of those things. Like, yeah, a football player doesn't need to learn how to do a wall climb necessarily, but it is very valuable to be able to have precision in your footsteps, to be able to know where your body is moving through space and how your body moves through space, to just have more of a foundational education around those things. There's so much to say around this, but
One of my favorite aspects of I'm an outsider for parkour.
Yeah.
I grew up doing gymnastics, and I'm a big, I talk about gymnastics all the time as like one of the most foundational things I think parents can get their kids involved in.
Yeah.
And I would look at parkour as adjacent to that. And I know that you told me there is some beef between parkour and gymnastics,
Yeah.
which I just think is wild, because they can both coexist in the same way that free running and parkour can coexist. And why can't you try and get from one place to another in a way that you also expresses what you want to express? Like, you could do both at the same time. People can power lift, someone can squat, bench, and deadlift in the gym, and they can just do it, or they can compete in it, and you can still get benefits from both, regardless of what you choose. But for me, my favorite part, and this is probably my bias is showing, and my context is showing here. I've never seen a parkour gym with mirrors in it, and nothing about what you said had anything to do whatsoever with changing how you look. The entire spiel was about movement, feeling better, overcoming obstacles, and appreciating what your body is capable of.
Yes.
That for me, and you just saw my gym before we started recording, there's no mirrors in there by design. For me, we're in a very unique time in the fitness industry, because for a long time, it was just almost solely focused on how you look. The fitness industry was about, okay, let's lose weight, let's get more defined. And that's obviously a huge part of it. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry because of that. But we're also seeing a shift now towards health. Yeah. But I think we're at this almost standstill where, okay, we're talking about health, but we're also still training like we are doing it specifically for how you look. And they can coexist, but I'm excited for the next 3 to 10 years because I think as people really start to value health, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, the shift will move away from how they look and more focus on what can my body do? What is it capable of? And because I think, in my experience, the experience working with many, many people, I'm sure you as well, if you look a certain way, let's say you get to how your body wants to look, which I've never met anybody who's like, this is the final form, this is how I want to look always. I've never met anyone, even the peak of the peak of the peak. In fact, I found that the more high level they get in terms of physique, the more disordered they become in terms of their view of themselves. Nothing compares to being able to say, hey, I haven't been able to accomplish this physical goal yet. I haven't been able to get from point A to point B. I haven't been able to lift this amount of weight. I haven't been able to do this movement of my body. And then when you can do it, nothing beats that. No, nothing, nobody, nothing, not even, most importantly, yourself can take that from you. Because when you have physical goals, you can always look at your, like physique-based goals, you can look at yourself in the mirror and still tear yourself apart. Maybe the DEXA scan says, yeah, I got down to 8%, 6% body fat, but you can still be like, oh, but I still have this, I still have that, I still don't like how I look here. Nobody can take from you, not even yourself, a physical obstacle or goal that you have overcome to say, my body is capable of this. It's one of the reasons I love deadlifts. It's just like nobody can take that from you. 200 pounds is always 200 pounds. You either lifted it or you didn't. And if you started off with 50 pounds and then you work your way up to 200 pounds, it's like you did that. And nothing and nobody, not yourself, not your worst inner critic, can take that from you. And it seems like parkour is such a wonderful exemplification of that. And that's like, here's point A, here's point B. And if you want to express yourself in a certain way, go for it. If you want to go for speed, if you want to just get there, regardless of time. If you couldn't, and even something I was watching your Instagram videos and seeing you do this one little thing where you were standing and then you jumped and you twisted and you held onto a bar, and then it's, for some people, the obstacle might just be, can you hang on to the bar? And for someone else, okay, well, maybe can you go from this position to jumping and then holding on to the bar? And then from there, maybe jumping, holding on, and then dismounting and landing properly. Like there's so progressively overcoming a more difficult obstacle. I love that nothing of what you said was related at all to how do I change my body to either further impress myself or other people. It's how do I get my body, how do I get myself to be proud of what my body is capable of?
Dude, what you're touching on is something, it's the reason why I think it was the thing that was missing in my life. Because, you know, if you want to talk about like the arc of body dysmorphia, of aesthetics, like genetically, I'm a very short and skinny dude. That is just how I'm built. It's how I'm wired. And it's something I had a really hard time accepting for a very long time. And of course, like there's work that can be done. And I did so much like bodybuilding type stuff, especially when I was in college, and just never content. Never like looking at myself to be like, God, like I wish. It was always a comparison. Always a comparison to like other people that just had it easier or they're just built differently, like whatever. And it wasn't until parkour that I'm like, who gives a fuck what you look like? In fact, most of the time, like your size could like be a hindrance, like you could see. And I think the biggest correlation that I found with parkour was it's freedom. It's freedom, like freedom to move. It's like it's not necessarily just like, of course, like people find fulfillment in their body in different ways, and there's validity to it. But when I think about freedom, I think like I'm thinking long game. Like I'm thinking I want to be training parkour in my 60s, in my 70s. And there are students that we've had that do. Because they came in, they were like hip replacement a couple of years back. They're like, I just want to reclaim my ability to like do some basic stuff, go up some steps, come down some steps, have just express myself and like move again. And when you talk about the physical benefits of parkour, you're building bone density.
Yep.
You're reintroducing jumps and impact. Somebody said this thing to me once, man. I still think about it. It like haunts me. It's like, imagine the time in your life where you've taken your last jump and you had no idea that you did.
Yeah, I think about that in terms of sprinting a
Yeah.
lot. Like I saw, I don't know if it's true. I saw someone say like over 90% of people don't sprint after 35 ever.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to sprint today. Like I'm
Yeah, I was like, I'm sorry, gotta go. See you guys. Like, it's a sobering thought.
Yeah.
And again, like, there's a lot of things wrapped up in this. Like, everybody, like, it is a privilege to be healthy.
Yeah.
It is a privilege to have a body that is able
Yep.
to be able to even think about doing these things.
Correct.
And there are people in the world that just fucking, their obstacles, their struggles are way more than what we could ever imagine.
Correct.
And their journey is like, is at a different tier than what capable, like, people that have the access to those things. And that you should thank yourself every single day. You don't have to be an athlete. You don't have to be whatever. But if you have a functioning body, you can walk, you can do these things without pain. You are blessed
Yes.
beyond measure. So to me, I like, when I think about parkour and teaching it and trying to, like, remove just the people, like, yeeting themselves off of buildings part of it and make it more accessible to understand, like, what is the core of this. There's honor in movement. Mm-hmm. There's honor in allowing your body to reach new potentials, and a privilege in getting to do those things, and joy, man.
Yeah.
Like, it's fun. And, you know, to the point of using fun to teach things, using play to teach things, parkour is so good at that.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
impossible not to have fun when you're just fucking around and, like, moving around the gym and jumping and spinning. It's like, when was the last time you did a jump and a spin? Probably when you're a kid.
You do it as kids, but as an adult, you're like, no, we don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
That's just what kids do. Fuck that. Like, you have to, like, God, we need to reclaim our sense of play
Yes.
and lightness and joy in these things. And when I think about Swift and my time there and teaching there, and you know, what went into, you know, as my time as a coach, and it ties into, like, my work as an actor as well. Like, and so much of those things have intertwined over the years that I've really come to love. Especially with the younger kids. I talked to you a little bit about this with pre-K parkour.
Yeah.
So fun. Ages like 3 to 5, kids that are just coming into, they're figuring out how this all works.
Yeah.
And you have kids that have very different proclivities.
Yes.
You have kids that have no fucking sense of danger, and they will just throw themselves off of whatever. And the key is not to dissuade that.
Right.
It's to guide it.
Yeah.
Same with kids who are very timid and, like, very, like, they're not sure about the world, and their steps are very different. So you have those two dichotomies, and you have to teach them in a class of, like, 7 or 8 of these kids to, like, you know, do it in a way that's safe. And, you know, there's lots of mats, there's lots of soft things, they're very low to the ground, and we build these little courses for them, but it's never just a course. That's a bridge with fucking lava underneath it. You can't touch the lava. Like, you have to, like,
Yeah, of
create that
course.
sense of, and you know this, you know,
With the
in
kids'
building
workouts,
the kids'
yeah.
workouts, right? Like, you create the story, you create the world, you create the play. And suddenly, when you're not thinking about this as exercise, you're not thinking about this as like, I gotta get my reps in, I gotta do this. Like, it's gamified,
Yeah.
and it's expression, and it's you know, an hour has gone by and you didn't even realize it. You're dripping sweat, your heart is racing, you have a smile on your face, and I'm like, that's what we're trying to achieve.
You know, you use the word freedom, which is a loaded word in general.
Yeah.
And I'm actually really glad you brought it up, because movement is freedom. What I've noticed, and I'm going back to my biases and my context, is I think many people who are even very highly involved in fitness are not actually free.
Mm,
They've trapped themselves, they've imprisoned themselves in this box of, I need to train this way. This is the only way I can train
yeah.
because this is the right way to train. And this is the only way to train that will allow me to achieve the goals that will allow me to be accepted or revered by other people.
Mm,
This goal is what will impress other people. If I look this way, then people will trust in me more, believe in me more. If you're training that in only one way because that's how you think that's the only way to be perceived the way you want, you are not free.
yeah.
You are not training in a way that embodies freedom. If you were free, if you truly understood that if you embodied the freedom and practiced the freedom that you truly have,
Mm,
then you wouldn't feel like there is a right and a wrong way.
mm,
You wouldn't feel like I need to look a certain way in order to get a response from people. That's not freedom.
mm,
If you train that way because that's how you at what you enjoy the most
mm,
and because that's what brings you the most fulfillment and sense of joy and pleasure and you have a specific goal, that's free.
yeah.
But if I know many people who are burnt out of training and
Mm,
they don't like it anymore, but they do it because that's what they've been told is the only way that you can or should do it because this is the only right way, that you're not free then.
mm,
It to the point of movement is freedom. The freedom in order to have the ability and the capacity to move the way that you want to move,
yeah.
but also the mental and emotional freedom to say, I'm going to change the way I'm moving.
Yeah.
I'm going to change the way I'm training, and I'm not going to feel bad about it. I'm not going to feel guilty about it. I'm going to try this new methodology because I have the freedom to do so.
Mm,
And many people are stuck in whatever they've been told is the one right way, which is it. You're a prisoner in your own mind to this made up idea of what you've been told is right.
yeah. Yeah. You hit the nail on the head on so many aspects of this. And that's why I find it such an honor to try to advocate for parkour, and try to bring people in, right? I'm like, okay, so to the people that are trapped and or may not even know that they're trapped or they're feeling burnt out and they're like, I want to find something new. When I talk about parkour and the dimensions, right? You have playfulness, but then you have the devotion to a craft that requires a tremendous amount of technical skill and specificity, and again, manipulations of variables. So depending on what application you're going for with your parkour, which we teach all of it, we want to like give people an opportunity to be like, okay, if we're doing footwork, we have things called strides. Strides are essentially when you are going off of different points with your foot. It's kind of like imagine like you're doing strides on the ground, like kind of longer strides, but your footfalls have to be in very specific places. They could be on small little ramps that might be pretty easy to just like move your momentum across. You see them in like sort of the Ninja Warrior
Yeah, yeah,
obstacles in
yeah.
the beginning
Like
where
the
they're just sort of
angled ones. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
It could be, you can scale those up, literally from the ground up, and that's where we start. We start with just like, okay, can you build specificity in your feet? Dope. Can we take that higher in the air? We introduce a sense of risk. That's something about parkour that I really like. Is it's not just the physical, it's the mental. So this is where, for somebody who's looking to find something new that's challenging, parkour is mental. That's why in that definition, it's a method of training your body and your mind by progressively overcoming obstacles. You could do a static plyo jump from maybe like here to here on the ground. You don't think about it. It's like it's not that big of a deal. If you take that 6 feet up in the air,
Yeah.
when you're jumping from one sort of like ledge up here to here, you might have a mat, you might not. There's risk now. And that's where you have to have a trust in your foundational skills to be able to do this. A lot of people ask why? Why take the risk? Why play it safe? Or why not just like play it safe and do this? It's just like a full understanding of tactical risk taking. It's understanding that you're not just doing this for the sake of doing it, and you're doing it willy-nilly to just see what you're doing. It is a representation of layers upon layers of progression that got you to be able to accomplish something like this,
Right,
with confidence and with precision, and knowing all of the ins and outs to be like, if I make this jump, how do I make this jump? If I don't make this jump, what are the ways that I can bail safely? There is an aspect of there's a Japanese martial art called ukemi that is also like tangential. A lot of practitioners of parkour do ukemi, and it's literally the art of falling.
I love
How
that.
do you fall?
Yeah.
Like, and
That's the first thing you learn in jiu-jitsu is
Yeah.
how to. It's called a break fall. How
Yeah.
do you do it safely?
literally, and you know, it's incorporating those things. That's why. Do you remember the Bruce Lee quote? It's, adapt what is useful, reject what is useless, and add what is specifically your own.
He was a genius, dude.
So ahead
I
of his
love that,
time.
man.
His life was cut way too short.
I know, devastating.
And yeah, when I think about parkour, I think like that's what I'm thinking. Like, you're taking elements of
Yeah.
lots of different things. God, we keep coming back to that.
Everything is a risk, dude. And I hate when people use that as like, well, why would you take that risk? Well, listen, on day one, I'm not putting you up 12 feet in the air and having you jump off. Like it's the process of overcoming these obstacles to get to a point in which you're like, hey, you're here. You're able to do this.
Yeah.
Is it worth it to you to take this? If not, then we don't have to do this.
don't
That's
have
fine.
to.
You don't have to do that. But if you want to test yourself and push yourself, then that is an option for you. And the fact that your body is at that point now, it's a mind thing. And listen, squatting 200 pounds, there's a risk.
Definitely.
There's a risk with literally everything. Is it worth it to you? I don't know. Only you can decide that.
Yeah.
But there's a risk with everything, and that's one of the arguments that is almost it's a moot argument. It's like you could use that with literally, like, people would say it like, are you sure you want to start your own business? It's pretty risky. A lot of businesses fail. It's like, yeah, but some succeed. Some, like, so why wouldn't I try?
There was a line from Pi that I think about all the time. And it was in the beginning. He says, choosing doubt as a philosophy of life is like choosing immobility as a mode of transport.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah. It's like, why, like, I understand, like, there is a lot of risk in the world. And the thing about parkour that I love is it's not risk for the sake of risk. It's tactical. It's understanding, like, what skills have you developed along the way to make you look at this thing that is a risk. There is a bridge, but trusting in everything that you've built and learned, and that your body knows how to do it. You know you have it in you to make that distance because you've done it on the ground. You've represented it. You've iterated it in lots of different ways, and now it's just doing the thing. And at some point, you just gotta do the thing, you know. And that's the leap of faith, really. And there's so much of that in parkour that has taught me just things about my life, like, and what I try to teach my students, and a lot of them are younger. They're kids, they're teenagers. We have some adults as well, like lots of adults. We have the entire spectrum of people, from the 3-year-old to the 6-year-old. Like, we have a community of people in the community, and that's what I love about the parkour community is, like, it's everyone.
Yeah.
And we're really trying to share that with people, with all different disciplines, walks of life, sports, artists, even. Like, that was something my sort of like little passion project that I did when I was working at Swift was teaching parkour for actors.
Oh, wow. I love that.
Like, what are the carryovers of, like, why work on your body as an actor? Because it's everything.
Yeah.
This is your toolbox in terms of how you tell stories, and to have a larger vocabulary of things in your toolbox to tell stories only makes you a more versatile actor, and from an element of, like, dynamic movement, it makes you safer. It gives you it makes you more marketable. There's so many different aspects of it. And beyond that, it's just you're working on your health and at the same time. And
I think of someone like Sebastian Maniscalco, the comedian. Do you know Sebastian
I
Maniscalco?
don't. I don't. Tell me more.
He's so funny, dude.
Okay.
But what you'll love about him is so he's a stand-up comedian. He's really come on the scene, I'd say, a lot in the last 10 years or so. In terms of his notoriety, he's been doing it for many, many years, but he's really taken off, I'd say, in the last 10, 15 years. And he uses his body to tell his jokes in a way that I haven't really seen another comedian do. And it's just the skill of just using your words, and the tonality is beautiful in and of itself, but he uses his body in a way that I actually found similar to how you use your body in Pi. When you would overly express yourself and fully extend yourself, like he'll use his body to tell the story of whatever it's beautiful. And so it gives you, again, more freedom to express yourself in a way that you couldn't otherwise. It's like everyone can agree that if you don't have a voice, then you haven't lost your ability to express yourself, but you've hindered your ability to express yourself. And if you can't move in a certain way, you can still express yourself, but you can express yourself so much more with that freedom of movement.
Absolutely.
I do want to ask you, because soon after I saw you perform, you sustained a pretty serious back injury.
Yes.
I want to talk about what happened and then how you dealt with this back injury. Like it was serious. Like you and I were talking, like you could barely get out of bed. How'd you overcome it? How'd you fix it? What happened?
Yeah. So, for context, what happened in the show, in the very beginning, there is a jump that I do off of the bed. That's sort of, for me, like I take that moment to jump literally as high as I possibly can, because it's like a launch into the story, a launch into the world. And again, it was within my wheelhouse of things that I've done. And I had done that jump over almost 200 times at this point over the last year that I've been doing this. So
I'm going to interrupt 1 second, because just for context for how high you can jump, many people who follow me on Instagram can see that I do box jumps, and they're like, geez, you jump fucking high. You can jump almost double as high as I can. Just so people can get an understanding of how wild your jumps are, you can jump almost double the height that I can. So it's fucking high.
I have been, I owe a lot of it, again, to the parkour. There's so much like jump and like precision and stuff involved that like even though I'm small up here, I got some legs, which love that. The goal I was working on when I was like at the height of working my plyo box jumps was to try to jump my height. Not there yet.
Close.
But one day.
You're close.
It will happen. It's going to happen.
So you do this jump 200 times.
I do this jump. I've done it many, many times. And of course, when you do a jump this high, especially off of elevation as well.
Yeah.
So I'm not only doing as high as I can from a standing plyo, but I'm also elevated for the... I have
it's no a depth jump. Yeah.
It's a depth jump. So it's very big. I try to always absorb with very soft landings and then move on. And I never really thought about it because it was something that I had practiced so many times. But it was a freak thing that just happened where I had it was a lower back strain that happened. It was the official diagnosis from my doctor. And when I hit that landing on that day of the show, it was the opening night of a show in, I believe it was Houston. I felt this surge of pain through my spine. And immediately, first of all, something was wrong. Something's wrong.
And you're performing.
I am in front of almost 2,500 people when this happened. So... I'm the last couple of years that I've been acting, I'm never like, you get a little stage fright, but I'm not nervous in front of an audience anymore, a live audience. Weirdly, in front of a camera, I get kind of nervous sometimes, but in front of an audience, I wasn't nervous. But then I was like acutely aware. I'm like, I'm in front of thousands of people and I cannot move. I was like, I couldn't straighten my back. I was like in a kind of a hunched over position. I couldn't run, like all of those things, the freedom that I had built. I'm like, I can't do it. I can't do anything. And I was muscle memory sort of took over, and I like managed to make it through the next couple of scenes. So I was still on stage for another 7 to 8 minutes
Oh, wow.
of just getting through it. And I was like, okay, I can't move my body. Clarity of text is going to be the important thing right now. At least if you can't move, deliver the text and like keep it lifted and whatever, and just assess over the next couple of things. I'm like, I know I'm very likely gonna have to stop, but I need to know like the severity of what's happening. So I keep moving for a bit, and it became very apparent very quickly. I'm like, I can't go on. Knowing what is to come for the show and the how athletic the show is, there was no possible way I could go on. So about 10, 15 minutes into the show, I leave the stage. I sort of collapse near stage management, and I'm like, you gotta stop. Huge shout out to Savadu Jivaratna, who is our understudy for Pi, who is amazing. He's a fantastic performer. He is like a little brother to me, and he's been my partner in this for so long. Who, at a moment's notice, he was like, I'm ready to go. Took over, and he was on as Pi for the rest of the night. I went to PT and had some of the worst back spasms I have ever. I've never, like, in the pain threshold, they're like, name your pain 1 to 10. I don't think I've ever felt a true 10 in my life until that happened. Horrifying, like, amounts of pain of just like you move just even in the slightest wrong way, and it triggers this thing that will not stop for 3 to 4 minutes at a time. And I was just immobilized on the side of the little assessment bench, and I was like, I don't know what's about to happen with my life right now. My body is it's my way of living. It's how I earn my living. It's my freedom. It's all of these things. And suddenly it was gone. All of it. I was terrified. So I'm getting like a little emotional, like thinking about it, or like talking about it right now. And like, I'm blessed for the people at my team at Life of Pi, and like Glenn, who was our PT there at the time, who was like there for me, like at an instant, and like just helping me, our company management that was there. And for the rest of the show, because I couldn't get home, and we were like weighing like, is a hospital, like what is the thing that's going to happen? Like what happened? We're still trying to assess, and like where my movement capabilities were, like what was safe, what wasn't safe. It became immediately like, once the pain had subsided, my logical brain was like, all right, we need to kick in now. First, we need to stop panicking. Don't panic. There's a lot happening. Don't panic. So it's like, all right, start with where you are. Just start with where you are. A lot of it was, okay, I'm stuck on my side. How do I get upright? First obstacle. So it was a lot of shifting. It was a lot of like figuring things out. I couldn't stand up straight for the next like couple of days. I couldn't straighten my back. So I was like doubled over on crutches. And even that, like I couldn't walk on the crutches. It was like dragging crutches in front of me and like dragging my legs behind me. It was terrifying. It was really, really hard. But I did find that like on the floor, when I was in I'm just going to do this. Like when I was in a sort of a flexed position like this on the floor, I wasn't feeling a lot of pain. I was like, okay, this is information. And I was like, a lot of my floor mobility was still there. And I could move around. I was like doing very gentle, like 90s with my hips. And I'm like, okay, what can I do without pain? That was the key thing. It wasn't, and this is where I the movement is medicine aspect really kicks in. It's like, where can you find your freedom again without pain? That doesn't exacerbate, that doesn't trigger where the injury area was. And so it was just like, how do you find more information about what is happening? You don't just stop moving, was the thing that I had learned. within reason, within reason. So that night was just about me getting home. That was my biggest obstacle. So how do I get home to my wife? And it was late in the evening at that point, and it was just like figuring out where I was comfortable, what I could do. I got home, and the next like 2 days were again some of the worst back spasms. That's when like you and I were, had chatted for a bit, of just complete immobility. And through the grace of modern medicine, muscle relaxants, oral steroids, and painkillers were a lifesaver that helped tremendously in terms of stopping the spasms and stopping the localized pain enough to where I could get upright again. I could walk again. So it was just literally day by day by day by day of just first letting the medicine do its thing and just being patient, as patient as possible. Then in the interim, this is where I want to talk about something that I, as a coach, have been the thing that was passed down to me by my coach, was also a huge admirer of you, and I was like one of the first introductors of you to me. Melanie Wales, who's still an incredible coach. She has been my coach throughout Life of Pi.
That's awesome.
Has given me all of my programming, all of my stuff, and I was her mentee for the first part of like when I was working at Swift, and I was like building my own personal training business on the side and working with clients. She was my mentor. She taught me this thing called the Foundational Five. That was like her overall health philosophy that I have integrated into my own life, and it's just a part of my life now. Now I teach it to every single one of my clients. I talk to anybody that will listen. They're the 5 core pillars of your overall health that have a symbiotic relationship, to where if you can gift yourself with one, you will start to spiral upwards in your health journey. It's move daily, eat well, stay hydrated, reduce stress, and prioritize sleep. So everybody has their own relationship with those things, but in terms of injury management and prevention, that was my thing. It's like my job is to bolster each of those things in any capacity that I can. Moving daily was the thing that was hindered the most. But I could give myself the gifts I could for getting more protein for recovery, for muscle recovery, getting a lot of fiber to keep things moving and regular, because my body wasn't able to move. And your body, when you're able to move more, that can help literally move things around to keep you more regular. I didn't have that, so making sure I was getting enough fiber in my diet, which not enough people are doing, is critically important. Getting enough water, but not just water, like getting your electrolytes, because I'm also doing something very athletic all the time. I'm sweating a lot, so replenishing your salts. Reducing stress, that's very abstract. That can mean lots of different things, but that for me, that was don't panic. Find things that literally just, again, bring you joy. I love to read. I'm a big big into my fantasy books, love them. Calling people, calling friends, like the influx of just love and support, of people that were like there for me, even random patrons from the night that it happened. Like 50 people like DM'd me and were like,
That's awesome.
saw you run off stage, and like, were you okay? Like, was everything okay? It was very warming to see just how many people like were there for me when that happened. And then sleep, just getting a good night's sleep, man. Like, there's so much about recovery, and we need like another whole podcast to talk about it. Bring the sleep expert on if you haven't already. Like, just, my God, just the benefit of a good night's rest. Those were the key focuses for when the injury happened to where I am now, and where I still am.
You're 100% now. Back is good.
Yes,
How long would you say it took you from initiation of the injury to, I would say, 90%?
about 3.5 weeks.
So that to me is amazing. And what it speaks volumes to is the strength that you had built prior to that, right? Which is the idea of it's we're all going to get injured.
Yes.
We're all going to take risks that lead to an injury at some point, whether you realize it or not. But I'd rather be injured and strong than injured and weak,
That's
right?
right. That's right, dude. Like your body remembers. Like that's the beautiful thing about all of this and it is when you train, when you move, when you perform, when you do all these things, like your body encodes these memories of not just like what you're capable of, but it can remember what it's like to be strong. And when you have a baseline of reference to call back to, like of course, like there's panic, there is disappointment, there's anger, there's like all of these feelings that come up when you're injured, when suddenly you are robbed of that freedom, you're robbed of those feelings of elation and confidence and strength and all of those things. Like when it's taken away from you, things are thrown into things are all over the place. When you finally have the space to just like really take stock of things and you can start the progression again, you know, to progressively overcome the obstacle. When the parkour philosophy kicks in again, it's that's when you've incorporated something much bigger in your life. You've incorporated a path of physical and emotional and mental resilience in your journey in life, and that you can, yes, that these things will happen. Life is unpredictable and we will get hurt in different ways. We could sustain a physical injury, but we can also go through like very traumatic emotional things in our life. And to know that there are steps to take, there are tools available, there are philosophies to follow, there are experts to listen to, that are out there to help you along your journey again, is the most liberating and empowering thing that you can think about in that recovery process. And I am just grateful, man. I'm like when I think about where I am now, like I'm doing the show again here in Fort Worth right now, and uh, made a couple of modifications in ways where I'm like I'm not doing the 50-foot jump that I used to do in the beginning of the show, but I made an adjustment that is within my comfort level and where I am now, and still allows me to joyously tell this story that I have with this team that I have come to love, and sharing it with almost I don't know the number at this point, but hundreds of thousands of people,
It's incredible.
and knowing that like this education in fitness, this education in playfulness, this education in philosophy and resilience and all of these different. I had mentioned this, like Life of Pi is the first time that has brought everything that I have learned in my life condensed into one experience. As a coach, it's made me have to take my own advice and to take the advice of, my coach that I'm working with again, and like learning what it's to be on both sides of that again. As an artist, it's allowed me to like to represent myself wholly as a South Asian, and to tell this story as a South Asian, and the story of immigrants. That the Pi story is a story of immigration.
Correct.
And it's
Yeah.
it's a mirror of my own story, and a mirror of these things that I reflected on about my time growing up in London with that trifecta of faith and finding the truth and all of those things, and Pi's story. And on a spiritual level, it's taught me things about myself and where my relationship stands with spirituality, and the practicality of what having a flexible and resilient spirit can offer you in your day-to-day life. Like it's incorporated all of these things to what has amounted to the most profound and generous and challenging experiences of my entire life. And yeah, dude, I'm just like, what more is there to say like about like how grateful I can't say it enough, like how grateful I am for this time in my life, this chapter of my life, to have gone through all of the fucking gamut of human experience in this short year that has like brought me to like places like this, to talk with people like you, like meeting people, meeting heroes, and telling an amazing story with which we haven't even talked about Life of Pi, like just the production in itself. And that's something like that when we're talking about physicality and movement, just as a quick tangent, the puppeteers that are involved. And I wonder, I am curious how many of your listeners, you have a very wide audience of people that follow you. I'm curious about how many of them have seen the show, because you've been all over the country. When you talk about the athleticism, not just for me, but the puppeteers of the show, the locomotion of the show, and what puppetry represents for this story, I would love to just geek out about it for a second.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, it's so cool. Like, I think, for those of you that don't know, I'll just give a basic idea. Life of Pi is a story of a young boy named Pai Patel who grows up in a zoo in Pondicherry, India, and is living this very idyllic life, but there's a lot of political unrest that is happening in India at the time. And his father, who runs the zoo, decides to uproot everything in their life and take his family and their animals on a ship and sail across the Pacific Ocean to Canada to seek a better life for themselves. But tragedy strikes, and Pai finds himself shipwrecked on a lifeboat with an orangutan, a zebra, a hyena, and a Royal Bengal tiger by the name of Richard Parker. And the story is all about Pai's survival. It's a story of faith and practical survival tips and resilience, and ultimately is his journey through the show. And I'm lucky to play Pai in that. But the way that we tell the story is through puppetry, as you got to see. And I think puppetry is the perfect vehicle to tell this story, because puppetry in itself requires belief. You're taking an inanimate object manipulated by people who are in plain sight. We don't try to hide the puppeteers. It's inspired by a Japanese style of puppetry called bunraku, where you have multiple people operating one animal,
Like they're
one puppet.
for visual purpose, like they're big. They're not like hand puppets.
Life size.
They are huge.
Yes.
They're huge puppets.
Yes.
Yeah.
To try to give a sense of reality to the size of these animals. So the zebra that is in the show is the size of an actual
legit zebra. Yeah.
And so you have three positions in each of these puppets, especially the three parts. You have the head, the heart, and the hind. The head puppeteer is responsible for operating the head and neck of Richard Parker, as well as the jaw and the ears. So you get a lot of expressiveness through the ears, the articulation of the jaw, and the movement of the neck. The heart puppeteer is on the inside of the cage of the tiger. They operate the front two paws, and they are also responsible for giving breath to the inside of the puppet. And then the hind puppeteer is the back two legs, and they also have the emotional indicator of the tail. All of them are mic'd live. So all of the sounds that you hear of the animals are made by the puppeteers.
Wow.
Live. And yeah, and it is a constant communication between these puppeteers, a complete sacrifice of their own egos as individuals to be in service of something bigger, which is this animal. And the athleticism that's involved in that. I'm very fortunate when I did Life of Pi on Broadway. That was my first introduction to the show. And I was in the ensemble, and I got to be a puppeteer. So I got to be inside of the zebra. I got to be inside of the hyena a couple of times, and like the amount of like very specific strength and dexterity that you need to manipulate these things is very humbling. Because you're like, I need a very specific amount of wrist strength,
The leverages
and
for
the
it,
leverages
yeah.
and like finger strength to be able to move the jaw or move the joint of this animal. And talking about especially the heart puppeteer who is bent over in this position for extended periods of
Oh,
time.
dude, I was watching. I couldn't believe it. It was like you're
Yeah,
hunched over. It's like I was very impressed
yeah,
with the mobility and the strength of the. And I obviously can only imagine what's going on the inside, but
yeah,
from the outside looking in, I was like, that's wild.
yeah. And what I love about what we've built as a company is there's such a huge culture of health and fitness and wellness within our company. There are so many different disciplines. We have yogis, we have dancers, we have tumblers, martial artists, we have just general weightlifters and practitioners. But all of us had to learn, like, we were all hired because there was something to mold within all of those things to be like, all right, you all have your own things that you're bringing to the table. We're going to integrate it through this shared vocabulary of puppetry. And we learned, like, the puppet is the thing that teaches you. You know, that is your instrument. It's your exercise equipment. It's what teaches you what your body has to do to move. And so I have a huge respect for those puppeteers who do it, you know, on a rotational basis, but like they put themselves in these incredibly interesting and
Awkward and
awkward
yeah.
positions and do this night after night after night after night after night. And we work together as a unit using puppetry, not just for the animals, but like the locomotion of the show is a testament to what ensemble work and what like all of us can come together to tell this story through movement. It's how the world comes together and crashes apart where you move from a hospital room into the middle of a storm in the Pacific Ocean. And it's through the power of manipulating the animals, inanimate objects, things in the world. Like, the story is puppetry. And when you talk about the story of Pi, where so much of the show is about belief, what better way to tell the story than like, you know, you take this inanimate object in front of you and suddenly it's imbued with life. And we talk about this thing, a concept called the fourth puppeteer. If it takes three people to operate a puppet, the fourth puppeteer is the human element that is a witness on the outside of it. So that could be me as Pi, or any of the other human characters interacting with the animals with a sense of reality. Like we're not trying to Disneyfy the relationship. We're trying to like really give it that sense of man to animal. But it's also like you as the human who is witnessing it, who are suddenly, you know, 15, 20 minutes into the show, you're like, you don't see the puppeteers
No,
anymore.
you don't.
You're left with an animal. You're with its own communication, its own opinions, its own struggles, its own story and obstacle and arc in the show. And I have found like that to be such a beautiful part of this story. And I don't know when this episode will drop, but it'll likely drop after Pi has closed. And I don't know. I think there's going to be a lot to unpack about what this journey has meant to me and what it has taught me. But I think the biggest thing is like, you know, belief, right? Like this belief in story, this belief in and the power of storytelling, and the power of this story in particular has taught me about where I want to go next for the rest of my life, and like the honor that comes through telling a good story and sharing that with people, sharing it with people like you, and like bringing you out to be like, this is my love letter to the people like you who have come and taught me things, and imbued me with a sense of with the tools necessary to tell a really compelling story that will leave people reflecting in their own lives in their own ways. And yeah, man, just as a personal thing from me to you, dude, just like I've been following you for since Sciat Fitness articles back in like 2000, like 13. I remember you had written this about me thing where you were talking about you talked about just sort of your journey throughout growing up in Boston, and then like meeting the people that you met along the way, your travels in Israel, and like everything that has shaped you to now, and like just following that journey, all of your YouTube stuff, your content, and how that took me out of a lot of like the noise and the nonsense that exists out in the fitness world, to learn the things that actually like really mattered, and to get to like internalize that and like to meld that with the lessons that I've met with the mentors and the people in my life, to culminate to this moment right now where I'm telling the story and using locomotion and movement, the thing that I love the most, to do and accomplish the task that I love the most, to share it with people that I like love and respect, is the biggest joy of my life.
Man, it's a blessing and an honor to have you on. It's wonderful to call you a friend. Next time you're out here, we're gonna have to get you back on again, and you can take me to a parkour gym nearby.
Absolutely.
I would love that. Can you tell people where they can follow you?
You can check me out at my website, which is tahamandviwala.com. Good luck spelling that, but I'm sure
We'll put it in the show notes.
We'll put it in the show notes. Or you can follow me on Instagram at manlykoala. One word.
All of it will be in the show notes. But man, thank you so much for coming on. You are a blessing in my life, and God bless to you and your whole family. And again, when you're out here again, we'll get you on and we'll go to a parkour gym.
I love you, brother.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you did, please leave a 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify. Give it a thumbs up on YouTube. Make sure you follow Taha wherever he is. Again, all of his links are in the show notes. Shoot him a message if you have any questions. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful week. I'll talk to you soon.